So tonight we are going to be talking about psychic medium work, past life retrievals, reincarnation, ghosts, and maybe some ways we can reach out to loved ones who have passed on. As author of The Psychic Yellow Brick Road, Corbie Mitleid joins me on this episode of Passion for the Paranormal. Okay, so joining me tonight is Corbie Mitleid. Corbie is a certified tarot master, psychic, trained medium, and ordained minister, and her work is showcased in Robert Schwartz's breakthrough series, Your Soul's Plan, Your Soul's Gift, and Your Soul's Love, highlighting her ability to retrieve clients' past lives in detail. With close to 50 years' experience, Corbie's abilities include spiritual intuitive counseling, past life retrieval and analysis, mediumship, and spirit guide conferences, including speaking with one's soul. Corbie speaks and counsels at holistic expos, seminars, and workshops throughout the U.S. and Canada, as well as in one-on-one sessions with clients worldwide. Corbie, thank you so much for joining me on the show tonight.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, it's always great to have people in your line of work joining me. I really do like these discussions, and there's really a lot of different things we can talk about here based on, it sounds like, the long number of years you've been doing this work, whether it be past life, regressions, talking to people.
I'm going to stop you right there because there is a difference in what you just said, Craig. Let me explain it. You said
Sure.
Regressions, but what I do is retrieval. And it's really important that your listeners know the difference. Past life regression should only be done by a certified hypnotherapist or past life retrieval hypnotist. Because when you're the one going up to the Akashic records, if you experience something traumatic, a traumatic death, abuse, something like that, then the trained hypnotherapist can pull you out so you can see it, but not relive it. I couldn't do that. On the other hand, if you just want to find out the information, you could come to me and say, why am I so freaked out by wet hair in my face? I'm the one who does deep trance. I go up to the Akashic, come down, and basically tell you to read chapter 2. Retrieval, you get the information, but you don't have to go get it yourself. People need to know that for safety.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Thanks for that clarification. I always like to, because you've been doing this work for, over 50 years now, and that's a long time. And, I can imagine doing this work for that long, you've probably really come across so many different kinds of things, working with clients and people. But before we kind of get into that, let's step back a little bit, because it's always good to hear how my guests get into the lines of work they're involved in, or in your case, doing intuitive and psychic mediumship type work, past life retrievals. How did that evolve for you, and how did it start, and how did it kind of evolve for you?
All right, well, you're asking for what I call the 30-second elevator speech. When I was 9, I read a book called The Witch Family by Eleanor Estes, and I thought, wow, there's magic in the world, and I wanted to go find it. Fast forward to 1973, when I was a senior in high school. That was the year Live and Let Die came out, and Spencer Gifts, where I was working part-time, had the James Bond 007 tarot deck, and I bought it. Because we were all hippies then. You had your elephant bell-bottoms, had your fringe jacket, and your deck. Now, 5 years later, everyone else had moved on to roller skates and disco balls. I still loved the cards. I loved the stories they told. So for 20 years, I just read for friends, making sure that my ego stayed out of the way and the message was clear. All of a sudden, in 1994, I could do hands-on healing and talk to dead people with no training. That's when the universe handed me my draft notice and said, hello, you're working for me. So it was part-time while I had lots of checkered careers: actress, author, inspirational speaker, video producer, legal assistant, writer for a graphic novel series, executive recruiter. But I always did the psychic work on the side until 9/11. As my husband and I watched the towers burn, I turned to him and I said, honey, I need to do the work full time. People need to know there are other answers out there. He said, I believe in you, go do it. So one more year, 70 hours a week, corporate, psychic work evenings and weekends. In 2002, I went full time. It's been 20 years. I work 6 days a week. I read 1,000 people a year, and I get to get up every morning. I don't have to get up every morning. And that's the key.
That, you know, that's a nice thing to be able to say, that you enjoy getting up every morning, and you know, you look forward to doing that. And you know, I envy people like you that are able to do that, to be able to get up and are driven by what you do day to day. And you know, it's just great to hear that. And did it start with any experiences as a young child that you had that kind of whetted your appetite before you read the book you mentioned? Were there any encounters, strange
Oh, no.
experiences?
No, because my family does not believe in this stuff at all. Anecdotally, I think that I was presented with the opportunities when I was 4. A lot of us who do this kind of work, we've all figured out that we got a crack upside the head when we were kids. And I'm not kidding. When I was 4, I was sledding down a hill and I was headed for a concrete bench, and nobody had told me how to roll off the sled. Whang! Forehead, where the third eye is, boom. They rushed me to the hospital. Luckily, no fractures. I have a very hard head. But that's where your third eye is. And a lot of us have had cracks on the head, falling out of trees, slamming into park benches. And it must do something to wake us up. I don't know. My first real understanding of stuff like that was probably when I was in college. I would start seeing things out of the corner of my eye. But before that, I just had to believe, and I knew I wanted it, and I was going to go find it.
Interesting. And so you said you really just started with was this just mainly tarot card type readings with friends and family and such?
Never family, never family. To this day, my family does not admit to what I do. In fact, my brother tells people I'm a motivational speaker. He will not admit that I'm a psychic.
Wow.
It is what it is.
Yeah. For some people, there's just they're never going to be convinced, are they?
And you have to let it go. It's a matter of what people believe. If they believe that there is nothing, there is something inside them that needs to believe there's nothing. Those of us who believe there's something, most of us have seen the inexplicable, and others just want to know what's there. So do I still love them? Of course. Do I discuss my work with them? Never. And I've made my peace with that.
Yeah. Talk about how you also got interested in the work of doing past life retrievals like you had just talked about.
Well, the way I see it, when spirit is looking at what your specialties are going to be, it goes rifling in your file cabinet to see what you got. What's in mind? Actress, theater trained at Brown University, acted in New York. I understand the idea of a character. Words are my drug of choice. I've always been a writer, so I know how to tell a story. But the third key is I've always been fascinated by history since I was a teenager. So you can have someone else who is a good past life retrieval person, and me. We could see the same thing. This other person would probably say, well, it's a long skirt and a big hat, and you're in front of something very fancy, so I know it's old-fashioned. I could see that exact same thing and go, hobble skirt, picture hat, that kind of ostrich feather, and you're standing in front of the Brandenburg Gate. So this is probably Berlin in 1911 or 12. Which one's going to give you more information? On the other hand, don't ask me about spirit art, because I can't draw a stick figure with a sharp pencil and a lot of prayer. Not going to happen.
Yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, certainly the latter seems a little bit more descriptive. But now going to past lives, this kind of ties in with this whole concept of reincarnation and what that is. And sometimes for some people this gets a little bit controversial.
Mhm.
But let's delve into it a little bit here and talk about reincarnation and kind of what exactly does that mean? Does that mean that we live multiple lives? We we come back many times, a few times. What does that really kind of mean for you?
Well, I'm going to go right to what we all run into, and the Bible folks say the Bible says we only live once, so you can't be right. And I look at them and go, and you're right too, because it is the soul that comes down time and time and time again. Corbie, this recipe, we get one and done. This particular recipe that we are will never be down here again. And the way I explain it to people is I say, all right, let's take the actor Matt Smith. Matt was the 13th Doctor on Doctor Who. He happens to be my favorite Doctor. And he was kind of goofy and he had the bow tie and the suspenders. But then when he was done playing that part, he turned around and was Prince Philip in the first 2 seasons of The Crown. Totally different person. Matt Smith is like your soul. The 2 parts he played are like the incarnations that get hung up in the closet when you're done. When we cross over, my understanding is we go up there, yeah, we sign the guest register, we unpack our bags, we get the orientation tour. But what stays alive are all the good things about ourselves. Let's use my father as an example. My father was my best friend. We had the same birthday. And when he crossed over, and I do speak to him, he still has his great compassion, his brilliant medical incisive mind. He was a fabulous internist cardiologist. His habit of terrible puns. What's he left behind? His depression, his anxiety, and his hypochondria, because they're not needed without a body. And there's no reason to be anxious or depressed when you are with your soul. So when he comes to work with me, because sometimes he'll come in on a medical intuitive reading, as I say, he goes into the soul's closet and puts on the Jerry Dorkin suit. And it feels like my father, but it's a gift from his soul to me, feeling something comfortable. It's like when you go see somebody and they put on your favorite sweater. Same thing.
Yeah, interesting. I'm just wondering, once you transition from this this life we're in now, and we transition over onto that side, some people say you're a jerk in life, you're a jerk in death. I often hear that. I'm a paranormal investigator, and I hear that in paranormal circles a lot. In other words, you still carry with you some of the baggage. I'm not. This is kind of one of those things that some will say is true, some will say is not true.
Mm-hmm.
So, from your perspective, we're not really taking some of these negative qualities with us, or do we carry at least some of that baggage on with us when we move to the other side?
When we move to the other side, when we do our life review, we get to feel all the good things we did and all the wonderful ways that other people felt about it. We see the stupid things we do, and we feel the pain and the grief and the hurt as if it was done to us. That's hell, but then it's done. When you, as paranormal investigators, find somebody down here, that is the personality leftovers. You don't get to talk to the actual soul because the soul doesn't get stuck. Okay, this is like paint that is smeared on a wall. You don't have the paintbrush or the bucket, but you got the paint smeared. So, and this rolls us into the idea of karma. Karma is not carrot and stick, bad and good. That's the kindergartner's way of looking at it. Karma is 5 things. It's unbalanced energy, which is a neutral, healing, service, contrast, and healing of beliefs. I always use the example of Ryan White. Remember, he was the kid in the 80s, early 90s that got AIDS when we didn't understand what it really was. He was treated like a pariah. His family was badly abused. He died at 18. People would look at him and say, God, he must have been a terrible person. Look what God made him do. If you look at it differently. His soul said, I could live a short life, but I'm going to make a big difference. Let's do that. So he came down in a life of service. Why do I say that? Who did he become friends with? Elton John. And at that point, Elton was drinking and drugging and driving himself to an early death. But he became friends with Ryan and his family. Played at Ryan's funeral, was so moved that he went and got clean and sober, has stayed that way for over 30 years. And in Ryan's memory, started the Elton John AIDS Foundation, which has raised over $500 million for HIV and AIDS research and health worldwide. Elton would not have done that without Ryan. So Ryan volunteered for that tough life in order to make so much change in the world. Ryan's soul did. See? That's why carrot and stick really doesn't work.
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing you're talking about here, because I've heard of this concept of soul contracts, or maybe they're life contracts, where it's kind of this contract you make when you reincarnate into a new life about what you're kind of going to get out of that life and what's going to happen. But talk a little bit more about what that means, like when we decide we are going to live a certain life. I mean, is it kind of a predetermined path?
Yes and no again. I'll use the example of you go to college. You go to college and you decide you are going to be a physics major. Great. That is, if you will, your pre-birth plan. That's predetermined. However, you can decide whether you're going to just take a bunch of gut courses or double major plus lab. That's your free will. Either way, you will learn what you need to learn during your life. Okay. In my life, what I wanted to learn was the value of being female, and that women are worth more than just their bodies, and self-respect. When I was 16, an incident happened with my mother, who was an alcoholic cross-addicted with barbiturates. 2 paths. I could have taken the gut course, which would have been, oh yeah, I'll show you, and had a very traditional life, done all the things you're supposed to do. But instead, I believed all the horrible things that she told me I was, and I set out for 30 years to prove her right. So that was double major plus lab. At the end of this life, I will have learned everything I need to learn. I just took the rougher road to do it. On the other hand, it's made me a much better teacher and counselor. That's part of living the examined life. Would I want to do it again? Not really. The fact that I have done it, okay. What have I gained from it? I'll use it.
Yeah, and it's interesting, this idea that we live multiple lives to experience different things. What's kind of the end game for us? I mean, are we eventually looking to no longer reincarnate because we've had all the experiences, we've done it all? What is ultimately, I guess that's one of the things that's kind of hard to wrap your mind around with reincarnation and past lives. What's kind of the end state we're all looking to achieve, or our souls rather are looking to achieve here?
Kareem, my friend, if I knew that, I'd be God, and they'd pay me a lot more money. But what I understand is there are certain things that you can only live in the duality of Earth. All right. There's the white room example. If you see a white room with a white carpet and white curtains and a white piano with only white keys, and you're dressed in white, you have no idea what black is. The Eskimos have 250 words for snow, but not one for palm tree. Why would they need one? So we come down here to learn things, and there's a lot we can learn. When we're out of the body, there's learning that goes on in other dimensions. We become spirit guides for other people and help them learn. The idea that this is all there is, I tell people, back it up. You see the Earth, then you see the solar system, then you see the Milky Way, then you see the galaxies. And remember, you're still this little breath of dust on Earth. Who knows what we get to do when we're not toddling around on this speck of dust? But while we're here, this is what we understand with our little pea brains. So there's probably a lot more out there, but it would be like asking a toddler to figure out calculus. It can't even speak. Don't give it the numbers.
Heck, I can't even figure out calculus.
There you go.
I want to talk about again, I've been involved in the paranormal for a number of years now, paranormal investigating. And, obviously, we do a lot of things like try and capture EVPs, try to have some sort of interaction with the dead, if you will.
Sure.
As we're going out and investigating. Some people use different terms for, some say ghosts, some say spirits, some say, there's disincarnate spirits. From your experience, what, I'm going to say ghost. I'm going to use the word ghost here. That's what's a lot of people are most familiar with. What exactly are we dealing with when we're talking about, in a traditional sense, what a ghost is and interacting with a ghost?
I think you're talking to energy signatures. I think you're talking to personality time loops, if you will, recordings. When I had seen discarnates, I see a heat shimmer, and I see a clarity in my third eye. I'm what they call a doorway. Very often, the personality fragment will get stuck down here. With me, very often it's soldiers. And I remember in Atlanta, you want a first. All of a sudden, a World War I German soldier showed up, half of his face blown away. I didn't see the horror and the guts. It wasn't there. And the first thing they all want to know is who won. And I have to explain it doesn't matter. Then I get them to forgive the person who killed them and forgive themselves for the people they killed. Then we can get them across. So it's that.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I was going with this this idea that perhaps spirits linger after they pass on. There's this idea that people go through horrific tragedies, maybe kind of locked in this kind of state of confusion when they die, that they may be kind of perhaps going through and repeating this traumatic event. What say you about that, and about people kind of getting trapped somewhere kind of in this earthly existence?
I believe that the personality traps itself with what they expect. The first time that I seriously, with somebody else, worked with something like that, we saw a World War II soldier who was stuck in a room. He had committed suicide, and we had to help him realize he could come out. We get what we expect when we go over. We do. You think you're going to see Jesus, you're going to see Jesus. You think you're going to see your grandfather, you'll see your grandfather. That's because we as the personality need that comfort, need that help across, I think. Now, what about my father? Is he stuck? No, he's not stuck at all. His complete soul is up there. But he is willing, as a guide, to touch base with me when we've got a medical thing to do. I know nothing about medicine. Everyone in my family was medical. I was theater major. I was a writer. But there was a woman that I read for in the Thousand Island area up in New York years ago. She was a nurse in her 70s. She said, would you just check and see how I'm doing? And I hear the rustle of a white coat behind me. And I point to the empty air and I said, I'd like to introduce you to my father, Dr. Jerome Dworkin. He was a really fabulous internist cardiologist, and he still does consults. So I open up, and remember, I know from nothing about medicine. And all of a sudden, what comes to mind, I say, what's with the T waves? She looks at me. Her T waves were abnormal on her last electrocardiogram, EKG. What did my father do as director of the heart station at a Jersey hospital for 30 years but read EKGs? So I turn my head and I look at the empty air and I say, you know, you're still a pretty damn good doctor, even if you are dead. He laughs. That's how it works. There can be comfort and kindness and good humor with your guides. It's not always, you know, Monty Python choruses and all kinds of things. Spirit guides can be people who loved you.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I wanted to ask as well. I mean, a lot of us are trying to figure out, you know, we've lost loved ones, we've lost friends, you know, and it's hard sometimes to cope with these things. And a lot of people are wondering, can I reach out to them? Can I talk with them? Can I converse with them even now they've moved on? What's kind of do you have any, you know, suggestions, recommendations for people who are trying to do that or feel like they can't reach out or just not hearing from their loved ones once they move on to the other side?
Remember that they love us, but there's a whole new world out there. We graduate from high school, we go to college, we're really into that. When, you know, we are not always going to come home and visit our 11th grade English teacher. Still think of them and love them, but so they will always hear us, but they won't always talk back. And I do discourage clients from every time they see me wanting to talk to dead Aunt Rose. They've gone on. You must learn to live without their physical presence. Retain their love, retain their good memories, but let them go. It's like the parent who won't let the child go to college or won't let him move out of the house. They need to grow.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm I wanted to get back to kind of this idea of ghosts again. Of course,
Sure.
um, this whole idea that sometimes people who pass on, maybe they have unfinished business here, and kind of just linger. What's your thoughts? I mean, do you think some linger for extended periods of time and just kind of hang out here? Do you think there's some that just refuse to take that step and cross over? What's kind of your sense on that?
I'm sure. I mean, think about it. I saw the dead German soldier in Atlanta in 1994 or 5. He'd been dead since 1916. That's a while. He was stuck down here in what I call the gray spaces. So they do need help. That fragment needs help crossing over. But people who are ready to cross over, people who believe there's something on the other side, they tend not to linger. You know, it's not like Egon Spengler in Ghostbusters Afterlife, much as I wish that they were that palpable. They're not.
Yeah, so you know, I visited Gettysburg Battlegrounds.
Oof.
Yeah, there's certainly a palpable energy there
Mm-hmm.
to the place. I've always said, you know, I've said this on a few other episodes as well. There is kind of a sadness, but also kind of a peaceful calm to the place altogether. It's almost hard to explain. At least that's kind of the feeling I got there. There's a lot of people. I had Mark Nesbitt on the show a few years back. He writes the Ghost of Gettysburg series. A lot of people have reported seeing either Union or Confederate soldiers. You know, in some of the, you know, the famous battleground locations. You know, multiple people seeing similar sightings. Mark kind of talked about that. So it does make you wonder whether these kind of tragic events do force some of these I'm going to say trapped souls goes to kind of just linger. And do you think that's what we're always dealing with, or we may be dealing with a spirit that's coming down to just perhaps show themselves a certain way to us?
No, it's a very different thing. Remember, I said in 1994 I could do hands-on healing and talk to dead people with no training. Right around that time is when I visited Verdun on the Western Front. And 1991 woke me up to a past life I had had then. And I could not sleep. There were whispers in the room all night. It's like they thought, oh, great, we got a party line phone, let's go. When I went into one of the chateaus that I know I was stationed at with my squadron, I immediately saw the rooms filled, people rushing down the stairs for breakfast. I knew who it was. I heard them speaking. I heard the German, even though I didn't have German at that point. I went outside and I sat on a step, and I've seen a picture of who I was then sitting on that step, and there's resonance. So yes, there are energy signatures. A war is not a place of calm and contemplation. A war is life and death and emotions. And most of the people that you see were young, had a lot of life yet, but died. So I think that's one of the reasons that people on battlefields feel so much, see so much.
Yeah. So in the paranormal world, we get a couple of different ideas on hauntings. One is your intelligent haunting.
Mm-hmm.
That would be something that seems to be interacting with you. You get your name called, you get responses to questions you ask,
Mm-hmm.
touched, whatever the case may be, there seems to be some intelligence or some interaction behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is this idea of residual hauntings. And this idea that something is just kind of playing back in a loop. Is that kind of the same thing you're talking about here with this resonance, that something is kind of, that energy is trapped and just kind of playing back?
Yes, none of the pilots talked to me, but there's also the resonance in objects from the time. I have the rare good fortune of having a World War I composite observation map from the squadron I was in. And I know that I would have touched that map, pored over it, discussed it with other guys in my squadron. I now own that. And the first time I touched it, it was like my mind was split in two and I was in two places at once. I was in this body in the 1990s, and all of a sudden I was back in 1916. And one of the purple stamps on this is Geheim, secret. And I heard somebody laughing over my shoulder, well, it's not going to be Geheim very long, meaning they knew that was where they were going to escort the bombers. It's like that. So there is energy in everything, whether it is personality, whether it is an object that calls the old personality forward. Ghosts are all kinds of different types. They're not just one ghost, the way there's not one monster or one angel. There are myriad types of discarnates who come in to give us information, to relive something important to them, to send a signal. It can be all of that.
Yeah. Korea had another psychic medium who joined me a while back, and
Mhm.
his kind of, I think he described something similar as you just described, in that when sometimes we do experience what we think is a ghost, that sometimes it is perhaps a spirit having some sort of thought or memory of what happened during their lives. And perhaps they want to relive that memory, or they want to visit that place that they lived when they were young. Maybe, they feel some nostalgia. And but I mean, are these spirits who have crossed over, are they easily able to do that, to be able to come back and do that and visit these places that they frequent in their lifetime?
Can we all play the piano? We all have 10 fingers. We can all pick out chopsticks. Some of us practice and get good. And my example again, 1 in 20 million is Elton John. So technically they all can. Do they all have the strength to do it, the concentration to do it? Can they work their vibration enough to do it? Some yes, some no. Some don't want to be bothered with that. They have more things they want to do upstairs.
I've heard that kind of similar thing too. It's a different energy level here on this plane that we're in.
Very thick, yes.
Yeah, more of a low level vibration, if you will.
Sludge. It's sludge. Curry.
Yeah. And so, yeah, what you're saying there certainly does make sense. I mean, once you cross over to the other side, perhaps there's much greater things for them to occupy themselves with, and to come back down to this level. So, to me, that makes sense as well. I always get the sense that when I am doing paranormal investigating, and I've had all kinds of experiences, I've always been baffled with the fact that I've had my name called. We've had other group members' names called when we know that the voice that's coming through is not any of our voices. It's not any of us speaking. I think what's often baffled me the most about it is, one, I don't get their names. Oftentimes I've captured EVPs where I've heard my name called, or I've had something said to me in response to something I'm doing, but the names don't come, and we ask for them. And so I always was kind of baffled by that. I'm wondering if they kind of lose that identity, even though they're kind of lingering here. I don't know. It's one of the things that always kind of baffled me.
I could hand you a line at bull, or I could say, honestly, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I do think that it's not, when you get EVP like that answers questions, it's not just a fragment. I think that there is a finger of the actual soul that is coming down to work with the energy to help you learn, to help discover.
Yeah, and sometimes it seems very random in nature. We'll get an EVP and it's kind of out of the blue, and then other times, like I said, it does seem to be very an intelligent response. They just don't. They're very infrequent, it seems like. I wanted to talk a little bit about. So you mentioned this idea that kind of we come back into reincarnate to kind of have different experiences. Now, what if kind of we get into a new life and we've kind of made this contract that we are going to, I don't know, maybe we're going to die some sort of death, some sort of horrible, tragic death, because we need to have that sort of experience. Our soul needs to experience that. Is that something that's kind of, maybe you already answered this, I don't know. Is that something kind of set in stone that we come back and it's just something we're going to experience?
We have, I think, 4 or 5 possible places to leave. You could die of a fever at 4, a car crash at 18, a mugging at 38, a bombing at 50, and prostate cancer at 82. When the soul comes up to these things, it looks, it says, am I done? Okay, fine. And you leave or you don't. In 2002, driving down a rural road in upstate New York, black ice under snow, I overcorrected the car. I took down a tree, a telephone pole. I flipped the car. There were electrical wires on it. I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. The entire time it felt like I was on an e-ticket at Disney. Felt slow motion. Got out of there with a couple of bruises. When I saw the car later, every side of the car was smashed, but the driver's side. I could have died of fright, but I didn't. But that was one of the things that really set me on, I have to do this full time. Now, this is also one of the reasons that I say any psychic who says when someone is going to die is unprofessional, it's uncalled for, it's unkind. Because if someone had told me just, I see you dying in a car accident, I might have died of fright. Look, all of us are going to get our ticket punched. Nobody gets out of here alive. Thank you, Jim Morrison. But if you're down here, live the day. Don't think about how you're going to die.
Right. Now, if somebody's going to have a session with you, Corbie, what most often are they wanting to know? Is it how kind of the future is going to unfold for them, what they can kind of expect in their life and the next?
Hurry, you really want the honest answer? Does Bruce love me? 95% of it starts with that. I'm not kidding. I do all kinds of things. I do a lot of what I call the general reading, the everyday tour bus. House, car, job, kids, finances. Okay, God, you put me here. I need some clues. Or, who was I in 1642 Belgium? Why do I have the draw? Or, I want to speak to my spirit guide, Binky. Or, how's dead Aunt Mabel? It's those things. That's as simple as it is. I take my work very seriously, but me not so much, which is why I can joke about it. Because it's truly, it's what it is. These days, most people want general, what I call a general reading or romance reading. A soul plan reading, which is, why am I dealing with this life challenge? Why has this always stopped me? I only do a couple of them a month because it's 14 hours of work, most of it in deep trance meditation, bringing down multiple past lives. And at the end of it, I'm a crispy critter. So I also do things like creating your sentence of passion. That's when we work together to find out what you are here to do and how to make it work. You should never go to a psychic and say, what's my purpose? That's like being handed War and Peace by your Russian lit professor and saying, oh, I don't feel like reading it, but you know what's at the end of it. Tell me the story. No. No. Your purpose will have no meaning unless you discuss it and discover it for yourself.
Interesting. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, and a lot of psychics, mediums, they help people connect with family members, kind of get a message. How much of the work you're doing are people wanting to reach out to loved ones who've passed on?
Oh, they do. They do. I can do it. But what do I love? I love tarot and oracle cards, and I love the past life stuff. And I don't do it the way a lot of them do. I don't believe in fishing because it's too easy to fool them. I see a woman in a flower dress handing you a rose. Oh, it's your grandmother. Oh, please. So I ask for what I call the dog tags. My father, Jerome Richard Dorkin, who died in 2001 at the age of 80. Notice that tells me nothing, but it gets me into the energy. And what my guides have developed is we play charades with it. If I put my hand to my mouth like this, it means they smoked. If I reach my hands to my chest and pull them open, they had surgery. If my hand goes over my mouth, it means they were intubated on oxygen, had trouble breathing at the end. I don't know why, but they do. But I get things that are so specific. 2 examples. A woman wanted to speak to her father-in-law I feel myself miming a pool cue. He taught her how to play pool. In Canada, a woman wanted to speak to her grandfather, and I feel myself salute. Now, in America, we salute palms down. Brits and Canadians salute palms out. The grandfather was acknowledging that she had graduated from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police Academy 2 weeks before. That's not it's a rose, it's your grandmother. But one of the reasons I will not do mediumship in public, it has to be private, is because I will not censor what comes out of the mouth. And it might not be appropriate, and it might be very personal. I will tell you the PG version of the classic story. I was reading for a client in Canastota, New York. It was a biracial, same-gender couple. The black partner had died, and her white widow wanted to speak to her. Now, I grew up a nice Jewish kid in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I have manners. But as soon as I connected, what came out of my mouth was in flawless urban ebonics and words I will not give to your audience. And I was shocked and mortified. But the woman in front of me was laughing and nodding because that is how her partner, Isabel, walked into the house after every business trip. Now, if I had said that radio, television, or in public, I do not want to think of what pieces of my body they would have had to pick up off the floor after I'd been attacked. But one-on-one, it was exactly what she needed. So that's how I do it. I will when I say I will let them speak through me, I'm not possessed. It's not, there is no Dana, there is only Zool. But I won't censor. My accent may change. It'll be the words they would have used.
Now, Corbie, you in your book, Clean Out Your Life Closet, you talk about life's three-legged stool. And can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. That's in the part of the book that talks about clarity. If you can get clear on your purpose while you're here, get clear in your relationships to get them solid, and get clear with spirit in whatever form you feel it, Ralph the Wonder Dog, I don't know, then you're steady and you can pretty much take what life gives you. That's the three-legged stool. You need to know yourself, why you're here, as far as you can tell, what you want to accomplish, what you want to leave behind when you leave. That gives your life shape, form, and function.
The other thing I always found kind of intriguing is you hear these stories of people, and one of them that comes right to the top of my mind because it's a very famous story, and that's the one of James, I believe, Leningrad. I may be saying the name wrong. The young kid who claimed he died in World War II as a Navy pilot, was shot down by Japanese AAA, and was able to recall all these details at a very young age about his aircraft, about people who were on his ship and in the crew he was in. There's a lot of other stories. A young girl in the early 1900s recalls details of that life of being in the earthquake in San Francisco in the early 1900s. There's a lot of other stories out there about people that seem to recall things that happened in previous lives. But it seems to be so very few that can do that. Why do you think that is, that there are a handful of people that seem to be able to recall past lives where the rest of us, they just don't materialize?
We don't need them. If you were a janitor in Des Moines and you realized all of a sudden, I used to be Napoleon, would you really be interested in being a janitor in Des Moines? When people come to me and they want to know their past lives, do you know how many women have come to me and said, I must have been Anne Boleyn because I can't wear turtlenecks? Oh, well, you cut me a break. We remember a past life only when it has something we have to deal with. And it has a lesson for us. The first past life I ever remembered, this back in the 80s actually, was through a rebirthing session. I saw myself blonde, hugging a tall, dark-haired gentleman, and I knew this was 18th century Scotland. And I know from nothing from 18th century Scotland. But at that time, I also had this mad obsession with the lead singer of a Philadelphia rock group. And that was not me. Through doing some past life stuff, we had the connection that I was the local tavern round heels. He was the local lord. He had gotten me pregnant. I was trying to blackmail him with it. And his retainer drowned me for my troubles. And we had actually the names of everybody else, but we couldn't get this guy's name. And I remember we were sitting down, my work partner and I, to linguine and clam sauce at a mainline restaurant outside of Philly. And I heard the phrase Marcus Baron Gordon Huntley. I'm thinking, what's this two title stuff? Okay. What do? When you have a title you need to look up, you go to Debrett's Peerage, which has every peerage in the United Kingdom. Now, I knew that the date that I was seeing when I saw the two of us was around 1783 or 4. I look it up, and in 1752 was born Alexander, 12th Marquess of Huntley. In 1783 or 4, he was made Baron Gordon of Huntley. Marcus Baron Gordon Huntley. What's the likelihood that I would pull that from nothing? When I got the name, when I read his biography, which paralleled very much with what I had picked up, the message was, he wasn't yours then, and he's not going to be yours now. Cut it out. When I realized that, the obsession I had had for years over this rock singer disappeared like a soap bubble. So it was a matter of clearing the karma from the life in the 18th century, which also helped me clear some karma now. That's why you remember things.
That's interesting. So we may be dealing with some sort of affliction in this life, and it's some baggage we have carried over from a previous life and we don't know it. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. And we'd like to clear it up now. Yes.
And so have you found in this work you're doing that has helped a lot of people deal with some sort of affliction, phobia, some sort of thing they're dealing with in this life?
Two quick
you
examples.
Just gave a perfect example of your own. Has
but there are
that
two. Yes, there are two I will give you. Number one, this is when I was lecturing at Lilydale with Robert Schwartz. A woman who had hair butch short said, I am always terrified to get wet hair in my face. Even one strand, I feel like I can't breathe. Why? And I said, okay, it's a 5-syllable answer. Lusitania, in 1915, you were one of the passengers on the ship which was torpedoed by the Germans, but you had not bobbed your hair yet. You still had that big Edwardian mass, which took on a lot more water, dragged you down. Debris kept getting caught in it, and you drowned. She looked at me and says, could that be why I'm terrified of getting on a ship? And I said, yes. So she was presented with why, and it changed. Second, there was a woman who came to me and said, I'm really worried about my son. He's 29. He won't live more than a mile from me. He asked me about every decision in his life. What is going on here? Okay. 1944, Utah Beach. So this is T-Day. I see him. He's one of the soldiers with a pretty mangled leg on the beach. You're his commanding officer. You're dragging him over a dune. You're taking some shrapnel yourself, but you get him over on the other side. You save his life, and both of you get out of the war in one piece. She looks at me and she says, do you see my rank? I said, yeah, you were a sergeant. She goes, he has called me Sarge since he was 3, and we never knew where that came from.
Wow. Yeah, that kind of stuff is just, wow, just kind of blows your mind.
I'm just the tool, baby. It just comes through me. I'm not magic.
Yeah, I mean, you've been doing this for a very long time, but when I hear stories like that, it just kind of blows my mind. But it does make you wonder. Now, oftentimes when people do ask to do past life retrievals, are you typically focusing on one past life, more than one? How does that kind of work?
Well, the examples I just gave you were, quick like that. But when I do a soul plan reading based on the work I did with Robert Schwartz, people will come to me with major life challenges, major. And I will come up with 2, possibly as many as once 10 past lives that are like macrames into why they're experiencing it and the lessons that they needed to learn. And when I get these past lives, detail, yeah, the entire, if you will, typewritten page, not just 2 lines. So that's why they exhaust me, because being up on the astral that long is tough. You know, it's reading cards for me is simple. I've done it for so long. It's like going to the gym every day for 20 years. You can lift a 100-pound barbell. But going up into the Akashic, listening, getting the storyline down, looking and watching and seeing names and why, etc., that is, it wears you out.
Now, is it often an emotional experience for people when you go back and you talk about their past lives with them? I mean, is it a pretty emotional experience for them?
It can be very relieving, that's for sure. When I pick up a past life with detail in Japan, and they say to me, I can't believe you're saying that, because when I was there in 2004, and I went to this Shinto shrine that you're talking about, and I started crying and I didn't know what, yeah, you know, you'll get the resonances like that. But most times it gives them a sense of peace, understanding, and completion. That's why I do the work. But it's why I only do a couple a month, because it's exhausting for me too, to channel that much information and that much emotion.
Yeah. And do you have cases where people go back to past lives and they find out in a past life that perhaps they did something really unspeakable? Mm-hmm. They committed murder. They,
and that's, I remind them, we have all been saints and sinners. We've all been murderers and victims. It is the part we play. It is not that you are a horrible person. You have to let go of that. You learned something from it. For instance, in this life, my mother was an alcoholic, cross-addicted with barbiturates, who was very emotionally abusive to me. Now, that's not her soul. But when we were in my pre-birth planning session and I said, I'm going to need a trip trigger so that I can make a major decision which way to go, to learn to respect being in a female body, and I'm worth more than my looks, she came in with these characteristics. It's the part she played. She, you know, she is not up there mourning the fact that she was so mean to me, because it was part of the pre-birth plan that we agreed on. She played the part and then she dropped it, and that's fine.
Yeah, that's it's intriguing stuff to think that, you know, we have before we incarnate, we may have these contracts set up with other souls, that they are going to play a certain part in our lives and do something to kind of help us grow through some sort of experience, like you just mentioned. But it's also tough to kind of wrap your mind around, or your brain around.
Yeah.
But very, very interesting. I've heard other cases where people have talked about contracts between them and other souls as they're coming to reincarnate. So it's interesting stuff. It really is. Corbie, I want to, before we're kind of getting short on time, and we're going to be wrapping up here pretty soon. I want to talk about, for you, what are kind of some red flags or some things you would tell people to watch out for if they're looking for a psychic or medium to do readings, or somebody's just looking for a psychic medium to have sessions with? What are things they need to look out for?
They need to get references. Number one, they need to make sure that they're not getting a one-trick pony, that you're not always going to get upsell. Oh, well, your aunt, I'm afraid that she's stuck in the gray spaces, but I have a $600 candle that will speed her to heaven. Oh, bull. Screw that. The ones that say so much and then, well, I have more information, but you have to pay me more. No, you should know up front what is going to be paid. No one should ever tell you that you have bad luck, that you're cursed, or your life is so screwy they're the only ones who can get it out. Then leave. No one should tell you when you're going to die. No one should say that your spirit guides have abandoned you. I mean, this is all nonsense. You basically want someone who's going to say, here are your opportunities and how to grab them. Here's the tough stuff, and here's how to get through it or around it. Here's your toolbox, go rock and roll. We will hand you the tools, but we are not the repairman.
Right. Okay, great. I wanted to share the screen here, and I'll pull up an image of.
As long as it's not a snake. You can't show me a snake.
No snakes.
Okay.
No, I wanted to pull up an image of your latest book, The Psychic Yellow Brick Road: How to Find the Real Wizards and Avoid the Flying Monkeys.
The flying monkeys. Yes.
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 Talk to us a little bit, just real quick, about the book, and if people want to read the book, what to expect, where to find it, and where to find your.
This is exactly what you and I were just talking about. You know, people will go to an art museum. They'll love the paintings and the sculpture, but they won't want to paint or sculpt themselves. Too many books out there about psychic work. It's psychic development, like you want to go out there and learn how to do it. But what if you don't? What if you just want to know how to find a good intuitive counselor so you have a safe, useful session? That's what this book is about. And it tells you what to look for, questions you can ask, questions you shouldn't. It even has a chapter on when not to get a reading. It gives you a little detail on mediumship and channeling. And yes, there's a chapter at the end if you're interested in starting yourself, a little start chapter. But there are thousands of books out there on psychic development. This book is specifically to keep you safe and have a sane, useful session. And even if you never come to me, if that book helps you find a good psychic medium and you have a good experience, I did my job and I am very content. You can find it on Amazon, Kindle or paperback.
All right, great. Well, hey, thank you so much for spending the time with me, Corbie. Did you mention, if maybe I missed it, did you mention the website where people find your book?
No, I didn't, and you can't avoid me. Number one, my website, CorbieMitleid.com. It's where you can make appointments with me. There are over 100 articles, all kinds of interesting stuff. You can find me under Corbie Mitleid, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube. And if you want to work with me on a regular basis, you'll find me at Patreon.
Very good. Well, once again, Corbie, thank you so much for talking with me tonight. Been a pleasure talking with you, and best of luck in all your future work.
Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.
Yes, absolutely. Have a great night.